Well, welcome in, guys. This is a stark difference from my post game last season, where my first post game of the year, of course, was Minnesota. My first post game ever, my first live stream ever on this channel was a post game against Minnesota that we lost. So now here I am to bring you a win and hopefully one of many wins here. As you all know from my normal live streams, I like to keep the conversation flowing. So make sure you drop your comments in the chat as we go along. I will also have somebody joining me a little bit later in the show. They're leaving the stadium currently. But yeah, drop your comments in the show. Let me know your thoughts. We're going to dive into those. We're going to dive into a little bit of what we saw today. And it was a lot of good. Not a lot to be upset about. There was a little bit we could be nitpicky on, and I'll be nitpicky on a couple of things, but only because it's a quick turnaround next week, getting back on board with a team that has, while they may not be a very deep team, they may not have a plethora of talent all over the field. They do have some talent at the very top end. And so we're going to need some of these guys, especially our defensive backs, to be 100% ready to go against these athletes. So we'll break down a little bit what we saw today, and a lot of good responses. I think that was the biggest thing was how we responded to certain things. And coming into this in my, pregame prediction video, I said I thought it would be good if Nebraska could score over 40 and hold them under 14. And 47, they did just that. So not only that, it was going to be about, it's one thing to finish games, when you have, a small lead. But, one of the things that Nebraska needs to learn is how to finish games in general. So another thing was how, even after the starters came out, how was Nebraska going to finish this game? Could they keep the fire? Could they keep the foot on the pedal? Could they keep the tenacity throughout? And that was something I wanted to point at because, again, it's a learned behavior, right? You have to learn to finish games, and that starts by beating, teams that you should blow out and finishing them and not letting them get that momentum late. We had that happen a lot against us where we kind of let off the pedal and let them sneak back in late. So good to see that not happen. And then every single level seemed like they had something to play for, right? It's a program of development, right? And when you get these young guys an opportunity to get in there and play, that's what you want from a developmental program. So, but yeah, keep your comments pouring in here. We're going to get into some of these. Never mind the 38-6. You weren't far off. I do got to go back against the predictions to see how people did. Rotate a ton of players and convert a second 30. I think that was my biggest thing. When's the last time we felt a little decent about, a second and 30? I actually felt like, okay, let's see what he's got in him to be able to complete this, and, knocks down a couple good passes. And just that was another response right there, right? Like, it was back against the wall, very first time up. He dealt with a little bit of adversity with the Nair drop, with the penalty bringing that back, and then it was able to make a couple of throws, and one of them that he made a spectacular throw with the chart changing the arm slot, and and recovered. That was the biggest thing. Like when Nair dropped that ball, was he going to get disgruntled? Was he going to come back firing? Was he going to throw another one in there? And all he did was he just came back calm, composed, cool, calm, collected, and threw a couple darts in there and got us down the field. So run game was really good. Defense was fantastic, as we expected. But I'm going to run through a little bit of your comments here first before I dive into things. A feel good win for the entire state of Nebraska. Go Red Big. I'll take that too. Go Red Big. GRB. A dub. Yes. AW. I like that. This first season opening win in 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Minnesota opener last year. My first post game for the Minnesota opener last year was it was actually, I think, my first live stream ever on this channel. And not only did we lose that game in terrible fashion, I'm in Arizona right now, and there was a storm that knocked out my power in Arizona. And so I was fighting for my life throughout that. Power kept going out during my live stream. So yeah, this is a much better occasion and much better way to start the season. What's going on, Mike? I appreciate you hopping in here. Justin, appreciate you hopping in as always. All right, so let's just get a little bit into the numbers here. Y'all keep those thoughts coming. And again, I have Wilson joining me here a little bit after he leaves the stadium, so he'll be popping in here a little bit for his thoughts as well. But let me just run through, Raiola stats. I'm sure we've seen them. I'm sure you've seen them. 19 for 28, 230 yards, 8.5 average, 2 touchdowns, but just very much in control of the offense. And I think more so than just the numbers you wanted to see how he handled the offense, not only with the lead, not only from shotgun, but like they mentioned on the broadcast, to be able to go in there and take some snaps out of the, from under center. And there was a lot of big formations, 2 QB sets, like 2 tight end sets, right? Like Satterfield had his way with the type of offense he likes to run, which is to, get big, get physical, and like run that style of offense that he wants to run, where it's, a aggressive physical run game that helps to set up the deep pass. And that's exactly what we saw. And that's kind of what I talked about this offseason with Satterfield. He was getting a lot of flack last year, of course, but with a man who's working with the talent that he has at his disposal, that offense that he typically ran at Baylor Temple, that he wasn't able to run that last year just because he didn't have the personnel for it. And that's what we started to see today. And speaking of the running backs, let's run through their stats a little bit here. So we had Emmett, of course, 8 carries for 71 yards. Y'all know Emmett's been my guy all offseason. I've said I thought Emmett was the number one back on this team from the jump. And he came out with 8.9 yards of carry, 42 yard long. We saw Rahmir come out in the opening drive. Rahmir with 11 carries of 50 yards. He ended up finishing with the most carries, which was interesting because last year, coming into the season, they had Rahmir first on the depth chart. They had Gabe Ervin second, and they had Anthony Grant third. And even though Rahmir was 1 last year on the depth chart, he got 1 carry last year in that first game. And I think Anthony Grant had 8 or 9, which he led the team in carries, and he was third on the depth chart, and Gabe Ervin was second. So for me, it was really curious to see how the distribution went out through the depth chart, especially with all the oars. And before Dante Dowdell got put in the doghouse, he ran very well, right? 8 carries, 55 yards, 6.9 average. But he's just a unit to bring down, right? Like, he's the type of running back that if we can establish, his physicality against that Colorado defense next week, it's going to be a lot for him to handle. But the biggest thing after his fumble was, Nebraska came out and scored twice. That's another thing, just responding after the turnovers as well. Last year, turnovers were beating us down to the point where every single turnover seemed to take the entire life out of the team, right? Especially it was recovered by the other team. At that point, it was basically we were just kind of tucking our tail and hoping we could stop the bleeding, force a turnover on defense, and our defense didn't force a ton of turnovers last year. But with this one, they didn't lose their composure, immediately came back, and were able to rattle off a couple scores, regain that momentum. And I think that's the biggest story of the day is the responses, even by Hartzog. Hartzog over, at cornerback, got beat on 1, but then ended up, recovering and making up for it. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players got a carry today. So, my guy Maurice Mazuka, they tried to give him a touchdown. Oh, man, I wanted to see him so bad in this game. And he finally came in. They tried to give him a touchdown. He couldn't quite get it. Brother of Micah Mazuka, of course. And then he's the guy that EJ Barthel said earlier this offseason that he feels like Maurice Mazuka is good enough to where he can finish a game with him. But I think they knew the plan there was to try to get Maurice Mazuka that touchdown. So they were able to close in on that. Well, of course, we didn't see Danny Kalen, as I figured we wouldn't. Don't want to risk, wasting a game of his. You don't want to burn his red shirt. He's got 4 games available to play. You don't want to use one in a situation like this. So we saw Gramstead come in for a little bit. Probably won't see too much of Gramstead over the course of the season. He's just still not where he needs to be in terms of learning this offense. But Harburg 5 for 6, 35 yards. They got him into a couple of rhythm throws, and he was able to, kind of come out and look good. And it's nice seeing Harburg play a little bit looser and freer compared to what he was at the end of last year, which was just his body was worn down, beat up, stressed out, and he just looked like, he couldn't figure it out. So it's nice, to see him in there and getting some action and really kind of just be able to kind of come in and calm down and not have all the pressure on his shoulders and be able to come in and make some good throws and get in some rhythms and maybe just get him some confidence going as the season goes along, if we can get him in there every now and then. But of course, we want him somewhere in the game. They brought him at the Wildcat that one time. They're probably going to throw him at tight end. You saw Carter Nelson come out there at wide receiver a couple times and make a couple catches. We're going to talk about Carter a little bit too. So still just looking through y'all's thoughts here. You really see Dylan settle in quick, got those jitters out, and just operated the offense efficiently. And that's the thing, that first scripted drive, right? When things started to go a little awry, that was because then you get a little bit off script, right? You come out with this scripted drive, you want this to go a certain way, and then you have a touchdown drawn up, and Nair probably doesn't have to, lay out for that one, but lays out and it goes right through his breadbasket, so, but boy, did he make up for that. Nair did. But again, yeah, that was the biggest thing is like, that was something adverse that happened on that first drive, not even just him coming out with jitters, being in front of the home crowd and putting together his first drive. Not only that, the fact that he came out there and had an adverse situation happen and was still able to kind of command the game the way he did. He looked like a seasoned veteran out there for sure. Missed a couple of alerts, but not a lot of reads. He was reading the field very effectively. He was really getting this is what I was saying with UTEP. They run a 3-3-5, 3-3 stacks, same as Tony White. And getting to see, that variance of the 3-3-5 against a guy like Tony White in practice was very key, I think, to setting him up in this game, albeit UTEP, not as talented, of course, but the 3-3-5 is still a tricky defense to go against. And, him seeing that and that, we got Wilson hopping in here, him seeing that and being able to go against that and just methodically produce. What's going on, man?
What's up?
Where are you at?
Here from the university. I'm in I think Abel Hall right now. So just checking in. What's going on,
bro? How'd you feel out there? How was the game?
The atmosphere is pretty good. I can't imagine what's gonna be like next week. But it was a little bit of a slow start. Again, it was 7-7. They go down, score that big passing touchdown. Hartsock was in coverage, but after then, man, we settled down. Raiola had a good game today. I mean, he really didn't make too many mistakes. I think the big storyline, and I'm not sure if you talked about it yet, was the running back room and basically how they rotated carries. Ramir Johnson was the first guy to get a carry, then Dowdle. So everybody got opportunities. Now, if I were to rank them on how well they performed, Emmett was number 1, Dowdle number 2, despite the fumble.
Yep.
3 was Ramir probably, and we didn't see enough of Gabe Ervin to really give too much of a testament there, but he did score a touchdown. So it was a good performance by the running back room, but I think Emmett's going to be that guy going into next week.
Got to agree there because like we were saying going into the pretty much all offseason, Emmett was kind of the guy that we thought was going to be the lead back here and going into the distribution of carries like you were talking about. I just went over how last year Ramir was 1 on the depth chart, Gabe was 2, Anthony Grant was 3, but then you had Ramir Johnson get 1 carry in the opener, you had Anthony Grant get 7. And you had Anthony Grant get 9 and Gabe Ervin got 7. So it was just completely backwards. And then today, Ramir ended up getting 11, but I'd say probably, in the pecking order, he probably ran, Gabe, like if we would have got a little bit more from Gabe, I think Gabe probably could have busted off some runs and, probably been a little bit more of a runner. Ramir got going as the game went on a little bit better. But Dowdle, man, he's just a load to bring down, man. He's going to be, I think he's going to be a key against Colorado next week to just really just kind of bully those guys on that defensive line and wear them down.
Yeah, he had a good game, and I really wasn't anticipating him playing that much, if not at all. So, he played pretty well. Again, I know people will overreact about the fumble, but before that, everybody said, oh, this guy might be running back 1, especially on social media. So he played pretty well. Man, the wide receivers today. First guy, Isaiah Nair. Let's talk about him. Holy cow. I mean, we'd heard the stock. We heard the hype throughout this offseason. He played phenomenal. You saw the speed. You saw the hands. But just the agility on that touchdown catch to go and get it at the 10-yard line, stay up somehow, bring it for a touchdown. He's going to be incredible this year. And I love his run after the catch ability. Again, he has that good agility to stay up, make a move or two. And then Jamal Banks, of course, had that touchdown catch. We talked about that all offseason, how it's not a 50-50 ball when he's around. It's it's 80-20, it's 10 or 90-10. So Jamal Banks had a good day. I was a little bit surprised. We didn't see a lot of Jalen Lloyd today. He was probably in 10 snaps or less. He was barely in the football game. I don't remember seeing Malachi out there at all. Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, I don't think was out there at all either. Oh, actually, he was out there in the last drive. So interesting at the wide receiver rotation.
Sorry, I said I was setting up for this on the last drive, so I didn't even see him in there that last one.
The wide receiver rotation was really interesting. I thought Lloyd would be in the game a lot more, but Barney was in a lot. Barney played well when he got opportunities. And then Carter Nelson, I mean, he had a good fourth quarter. I'm not sure if you saw that last drive. I think he had 2 or 3 catches. He looked good, looked very shifty. So I'm excited about this receiver core. They had a good day. Raiola played about as good as you could have imagined from a true freshman. I wish you saw Kalen. I was kind of mad that Kurt Amstad went out there on that last drive. I wish Kalen got an opportunity.
I don't know if they necessarily – that's probably just maybe just if case of rainy day, like not wanting to burn that one game, one of the 4 games for his red shirt. Since Gramstead only was out there for about 3 plays, so maybe they didn't feel it necessary just in case we saw the injuries, what happened last year. But yeah, like you were talking about Carter Nelson, I almost tweeted this, but then I was like, this kind of sounds weird to tweet, but I was about to say he has some wiggle to him, man. Like he does.
Good call not to tweet that.
Yeah, no, because he but like showed some quick feet there on that first little catch where he kind of bounced it outside even for a few extra yards, and and he didn't seem like he felt any nerves or anything like that either. He came out and just played his game, and he's going to be a problem. He is seriously going to be a problem, and we're probably going to see him implemented more and more as the season goes along. Again, late enrollee, still learning some of the ins and outs of this offense. Evil Sipple, one of the best. Hey, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate y'all. Everybody who stops in at Raiola, elevate everybody, temper expectations. This was UTEP, but look good for the most part. Yeah, and with the tempering expectations, I do agree. However, I think this one is a rightful happy just because the manner in which he went out there and read the game, and the manner in which he flowed within the confines of the offense, and wasn't, he didn't seem to have to operate in too much structure like a true freshman normally would. It seemed like he was going out there and actually, hitting his checkdowns, going through his progressions and stuff like that. And that's one of the things I wanted to see, like outside of the scripted drive, because that was after that first drive. I was like, I just kind of want to see how he commands the offense when things get a little bit outside of the script, and he had very good command, and was accurate for the most part. But when he wasn't, he was putting it at least in a place where a defender wasn't going to get his hands on it. A couple times he threw into traffic, but then on a couple of those little rollouts where he was kind of, he kind of threw it a little bit out in front of him. That could have just been a little bit of him, being tight there too, but still continue to loosen up and get better with those throws as the game went along. But this is the type of game he needed to just be able to go out there, get in rhythm, and get rest before next week. But what's your thoughts on Raiola overall?
I thought Raiola had a great game. The one thing that I loved about him was just his improvisation, or just his improv, basically. So when the pocket breaks down for him to go and have a sidearm across the middle to keep the player rolling, like in the past, Nebraska quarterback Harburg would roll out and try to run, but man, did he have some big third down, basically converted on third down because of that ability. So he played very well. Yeah, he had a couple balls that were pretty questionable. That's expected in his first game, but like I said, like I opened up with, that's about as good as he could have possibly played. Yeah. As a true freshman. So really quick, I gotta roll. We'll perhaps get back on here, but I gotta bounce, get in my car, go back to Omaha. But I just want to check in real quick.
Appreciate you hopping on, man.
Absolutely. I'll see you.
Yep. Later, brother. All right, everybody. Wilson hopping in here. He will be joining me on a few of these post games. Let me find my other overlay back up here so I can get this up for y'all. But yeah, kind of what he was talking about too with the third downs. I actually have the third down stats up here. 11 for 17 on third down today. Third down for UTEP, they were 3 for 10, only 30%. So fourth downs, of course, you would have liked to see those fourth downs go a little different, like the fourth and shorts. Again, with the physical style of nature of this team, you really want to see them out physical UTEP on the short yardage situations. But, this offensive line, for the most part, good protection. Westmoreland, their best defensive lineman that they were saying, was going to be the biggest issue for Corcoran and those guys. I think he was only credited with 1 QB hurry, if I'm not mistaken. And that was basically at the end of the second quarter, or end of the first half. So, Westmoreland, their best defensive lineman, was very, very limited there. And if we look at where's it at? Rushing yards here, 56 for UTEP, 223 for Nebraska. That puts UTEP at about 2.3 yards per attempt. And I think Nebraska, averaged defensively about 2.2 per attempt given up last year as well. So right on par with where they were. And again, that's with kind of the fourth string coming in there, third, fourth string coming in there late. Turnovers 2, 1 for us. So we won the turnover margin. That was the biggest thing too. It's not necessarily just the fact that, we turn the ball over. That, we don't want to turn the ball over naturally, but we need to win the turnover battle. The last time that Nebraska won the turnover battle, coincidentally, was 2016, was also the last time Nebraska had a winning record, and the last time Nebraska made a bowl game. So no secret there is what needs to be done by this defense going forward. I would like to have seen them make a couple more, turnovers, or, I kind of wanted 3 just to see how we were looking, but, they had their hands on many balls, could have got a lot more turnovers, too. And it's one of those things where it's like their offense, UTEP's offense was so discombobulated, that Nebraska's defense was just really keeping, themselves off the field and not having to, sit there while they run 200 plays a game like they wanted to. Evil Sipple, I appreciate you hopping in here. Do you feel worried for the CU game? Oh, I see you. What's up, Chancellor? I appreciate you. People don't realize how good that was by Dylan. Yeah. Dylan's command of the offense was absolutely crazy today for a freshman. He was just like you said on Twitter, Chancellor. He was playing like a veteran out there, and like it's one thing to look at the stats; it's another thing to just see how he was operating effectively in this offense. And it was something. It was beautiful to see, because again, with true freshmen, a lot of times, like, it doesn't matter who they're out there against week 1. I get it was just UTEP, but they'll get out there and have deer in the headlights look week 1 against anybody. It's just a whole different world when you're out there, in front of 95,000 screaming fans, not in practice, and you got the pressure on your shoulders, especially the pressure of being Raiola, who's the one that, really from the outside looking in, everybody thinks Raiola is the only improvement that this team made in the offseason. So, but he's got to go out there and put those couple of those other guys on display, Isaiah and Aaron, Jamal Banks, of course, helping him out a ton. But do you feel as worried as I do for the CU game? Can Shadur feast on a secondary with all those blown coverages today? I don't necessarily think it was a lot of blown coverages out there. I think there was, maybe some misplays, some feet getting crossed up, but Hartzog came back after that one mistake and, got it back with a interception, and was able to, the defense for the most part was able to lock in and focus and settle down and really make it hard on them. They were trying everything they could. They were running a bunch of screen plays to try to get something to break in this offense. And like I said, outside of that, just that one blip, and that was after we gave them a short field going for it on 4th down and didn't get it, gave them a little momentum. After then, it was just they were able to lock it down. And I don't care who you play, when you give up 7 points, I mean, your defense is playing pretty well. But when it comes as far as the CU game goes, I don't know. Like, the problem is for Colorado is they don't really have the physicality. They don't have the depth that Nebraska does. Not only that, they don't have the size. They are a 3-headed, monster right there with Travis Shadur and Joe Horn. But outside of that, it's going to be hard for us to keep up with their playmakers, of course. But I 100% believe our defensive backfield is capable of doing it. I also believe our scheme is going to make it much harder in Shadur. That's another thing that people have to think about is the scheme of this 3-3-5. Again, last year the offense didn't help us out too much. So I know, but in that first half, if you watch that first half again of that Colorado game last season, the defense was doing just fine. And it wasn't until kind of the offense kept turning the ball over, the defense had to stay on their field. And not only that, you're playing in Colorado at altitude. It's going to wear your team down. And that was a 2-score game up until the 4th quarter. So it's not like I don't think it's one of these things where I'm actually feeling pretty good about the Colorado game. I'm feeling much better than I did before this weekend, and I still felt pretty good about it. I expect that line to move more in Nebraska's favor, even though Nebraska right now is sitting at about a touchdown favorite. So, but yeah, I can see why. There's a little bit of concern just because, they do have athletes. That's the one thing you can't take away from them. They have athletes all over the field. But I just think schematically, I think this defense is going to be able to, and not only that, this pass rush, I just think, with the size that we have from this defensive line, it's going to be really hard for Colorado's offensive line to block. And that's going to help our secondary out. You get pressure on Shadur, it's going to be a nightmare for him. It's not North Dakota State pressure, right? You got 6'6", 330 Ty Robinson coming at you. It's a little bit harder to throw the ball up 70 yards in the air up to nobody. So, hey, I appreciate that, Mike. Thank y'all. Thanks everybody for tuning in here too. I appreciate y'all. So every time I pass, I heard Nair. Yeah, exactly. Nair ended up with, let me go to his final stats here. Just had him up. I think he had over 124 yards, something like that. Let me see. Receiving Nair, 121 yards, 6 receptions, 121, 1 touchdown with a 59-yard long. Jamal Banks, 4 receptions, 61 yards, 1 touchdown, 21-yard long. And then Janiron Bonner, we saw him get mixed in the first drive, 3 catches, 26 yards. Carter Nelson ended up with 3 catches, 21 yards, 14 along, and spread the love around. This is another thing that we haven't seen. Look at how many pass catches there were. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people caught a pass today. That's Fedoni caught 3. Keelan Smith caught 1. Emmett Johnson, Ja'Cory Barney, Roman Mangini, Luke Lindenmeyer, Alex Bullock, Carter Nelson, Janiron Bonder, Jamal Banks, spreading it around too, right? That's something we haven't seen, is these guys getting opportunities and the ball being spread out. That's another thing to look at. What your quarterback's doing is he's not consistently targeting just 1 or 2 people. He's actually going through his progressions, hitting his checkdowns and stuff like that. And again, he may key onto something and miss, an open guy here or there. But, it's one thing to, not see an open guy, right? But as long as he makes a play, right, we can live with that. And then as film is watched, he'll start to see those things that he misses on. Like, this is his first game. A lot of this is going to show up on film. They'll be able to show him, hey, we missed this. We need to look for this. And that's how he's going to develop over the course of the season. So, you take maybe if they have 3 open receivers that he missed on today, you correct one of those, right? And you do that each and every single week. And eventually, it is still part of development. He's still a developing quarterback. So we can't expect him to be, perfect. But what we saw out there was about as good as you can get from a quarterback. Moose, nice win for Big Red. Raiola looks legit. Yes, he does. I appreciate you stopping in here, Moose. All the Michigan fans were pretty complimentary of Raiola too. So even when I was like, hold on, I'm gonna watch a little bit more before I get too crazy. But that is a big take. Tommy Fedoni is huge. He is huge. But yeah, he's like you said, it's just a hard time getting running north south. I think again, once he kind of gets in a rhythm and gets in a flow, though, I think he'll be fine. Fedoni is just, once he starts, getting the rhythm, catching those balls, he's going to start, finding his rhythm in this offense. I think right now there's a lot of new pieces on this offense, so everybody's trying to fit where they fit on this offense right now, and so there's a lot of moving pieces. And again, last year we had a quarterback who was very much keying in on 1 or 2 hot reads, right, and then trying to get rid of the ball or running. Now we have a guy who's going through the progressions and seeing the field a little bit more. So Fedoni's going to need to, get open. And like last year was a little bit of a reliance almost on Fedoni, just trying to get him the ball because he's the, biggest target we had and one of the most athletic targets we had. And our receiver core is injured, so getting him into a rhythm is going to be key. But once he gets there, he'll be fine. Thomas Fedoni is really not concerned about him at all. 24 is a dude. He's slow to get moving. I'd like to see him more on vertical routes, attacking the mid-level. Yeah, I think we can use him to exploit, some of these definitely soft spots in the linebackers and then that second level, right? Yeah, and use him, even last year, we would use him to just fly up the middle, beat cover 2 sometimes, so but the thing is, he is a big target too. So, he doesn't always have to have separation. We also want to see that, we can trust to go to him, in traffic as well, which I would like to see, him be targeted in traffic as well, just see how he does on the 50-50 balls as well. Cause I'd like to see some of his development. Cause last year, Fedoni coming into the season, of course, off of the injuries really was, kind of, getting back into almost game action as he went along. And then, kind of rebuilding mental strength in those legs. So he, tore the ACL twice. So, kind of rebuilding the mindset in that and being able to take those hits and being able to there's a mental block when you come back from an injury, especially when you've been injured twice, had the same injury twice. There's a little bit of a growing pain there. So I think Fedoni, gets it going next week. I think his size is going to come into our advantage next week, especially over those linebackers. So expect him. I'm hoping we can see him get utilized in the middle of the field a lot and just really kind of, again, be another big body who's going to try to come in and just kind of like wear their defense down as we manufacture drives. Today it was a lot of driving the ball, right? I don't know how everybody felt about play calling. Yeah, Chancellor. Yep, most definitely. Y'all got to check out Chancellor on 93.7 The Ticket. He's got a spot over there. Switch names. This is the same channel drop. Okay, so yeah, if you go over to 93.7 The Ticket, you can go check out his stuff over there. He's there every weekday too, so go check out his stuff. I'm on with him there usually on Wednesdays. So been with there the last couple weeks. He was on vacation last week, so looking forward to getting over there and talking ball. But they got a lot of good stuff going over there, so check that out as well. Do we? All right, Mike. Mike's making friends everywhere. Let's see. Switch names. This is the same channel drop. All right. Was wondering where you had been. Tend to play like this today. Bright future ahead. I think UTEP O-line is just as good as Colorado this season. John, appreciate you, man. Yeah, John was one of the ones being complimentary as well during the game. So a lot of love from our Michigan guys. But yeah, the play call, right? The decision with the play calling. Let me know your take on this because, initially out of the gate, right? And Chancellor talked about this was, the biggest thing was getting Raiola in a rhythm, trying to get some short throws out there on top of the run game, right? To just be able to get him in some kind of a rhythm. But it seemed a little bit kind of after the first drive, and the momentum started to go, it seemed like we came a little bit, run heavy. And again, I know they want to stick with the run game, but I almost felt like, and the game plan worked. Who am I to question it, right? But I was feeling there for a little bit that we might be a little too conservative there in the first half, maybe at the end of the first quarter, going into the second before we exploded the second. But I think in that first quarter, a little bit conservative on the play calling. And then after that, I think they really kind of let it go a little bit more with the balancing of the play, the pass to the run. And I think that's really what got this offense going. It was really, really, really interesting to, like I said, see the dynamic of how the running back, room is going to level out. But again, I think next week we'll probably see, Emmett. I would say Emmett's the top guy. And then, Gabe had a great game. Ramir, you can't be mad at either one of those games. Dowdle, it depends. Like, I think Matt Rule will probably, he put him in the doghouse for the rest of the game. I think he will reset and he'll probably, let him have it in practice, let him earn it back in practice, but he'll be out there next week. Dante Dowdle, we're going to need those guys next week, especially the big guys like Dante Dowdle and Gabe Ervin. But yeah, Gabe Ervin, 2 touchdowns on 6 carries. Nice to see him come back. And again, I wanted to see Maurice Mazuka get another one. I want to see that really bad. But yeah, you think about that, you had Dowdle get a fumble there at the 4-yard line, another potential touchdown, trying to get Mazuka that touchdown there at the goal line. That could have been another touchdown, left some points out there, but the response by the defense to pick the offense up. Not only that, then the offense came back and got the defense, right? The defense came out there, picked up the offense with a safety, and then the offense came out there, did what they do, and scored. So it was a fun game. And again, the 26.5 point spread, I think, and Steve Merrill, I think it was Steve Merritt, came on the channel and said all the projections had Nebraska, or most of the projections had Nebraska clocked to win by 33, and Nebraska won by 33 exactly on the dot. So if you're a betting person and you watch that video, good job. Good for you. Hey, buddy, I'm no help with play calling. UTEP was a cupcake, folks. Well, I mean, so was North Dakota State supposed to be, weren't they? Sorry, Zion, but I appreciate you stopping in here and helping my algorithm. That helps me a lot. But anyways, let's go ahead and cut into the team or the individual stats here. I want to go through our defense real quick. All right, so on the defensive side of the ball, Malcolm Harzaw led the team in tackles with five solo tackles. Again, Malcolm Harzaw, just a do-it-all player out there, right? Playing some cornerback until, we saw Sierra Wright out there as well. Got tripped up on the sideline, but hopefully Bly Hill can return next week. We're going to need – it would be nice to have that long, rangy defensive back out there. Sierra Wright, again, a little bit, 6 foot. Tommy Hill, about 6 foot, 6'1" as well. So having Bly's length out there would be really, really key. That's something they were missing today, is just that length on the outside. Mekhi Gaber, 5 total tackles, 2 solos, and 1.5 TFLs. So good game for him. Nash Hutmacher, what he does most of the time doesn't even show up in the stat sheet because he's a game wrecker in the front of that line. His entire job in this 3-5 is to really try to collapse down as much as he can and have as many blockers have to come to him as possible to keep him from breaking through the middle of that line, because then that gives the Nebraska defense numbers. With the 3-3-5, right, this is all a numbers game. And if your nose can break through and start taking on some of those extra blockers, then those blockers, that are coming around to kind of block your guys on the edge, then have to kind of take on those defensive ends. And then that will free up those guys on the edges. And it's kind of a trickle down effect, right? So everything starts right there from the nose tackles. But even with that, 3 total tackles, 1 solo, 1 TFL. Marcus Buford, 3 totals, 1 solo. Mason Goldman, two tackles, 2 solos. See, Ty Robinson he's going to be a nightmare next weekend for Colorado. I'm just going to say that. So Ty, 2 total tackles, 2 solos, 2 TFLs. Just an excellent game for him. MJ Sherman, Ramir Stewart, Willis McGahee the fourth coming in with 2 solo tackles as well. Umami Ellen came in there. I know y'all saw that play there towards the end. Big time TFL. Jamari Butler, a fairly quiet game for him, but Jamari Butler, a couple plays there, I saw Jamari Butler was put in a stranglehold too. So they're bringing some concepts around where you kind of bringing Jamari inside, and they were rotating the linebacker out to really kind of get him around. And when I watch some of this film, I'll be able to put that a little bit more of the schematics together on this Tuesday live stream or on a video I post about it. So try to get into some of the schematics that the defense was trying to utilize there, and some of the stunts that they did. Jamari Butler, Gage Stinger got in the action. Derek Branch, Tavion Thompson, all these guys ended up with 1 tackle. Ishmael Smith Flores there with that big run TFL there late in the game. Vincent Shavers, 1 tackle. Isaac Gifford, quiet on the stat sheet, but Isaac Gifford, he was out there. He's out there playing. So, but overall, just the defensive depth, right? Again, finishing the game with your 3rd or 4th string out there and still being able to close the game, not allowing another score since after that first quarter, what was huge. That is the key to this team going forward. Is not only they got to stay in control of games, no matter the situation. Whether Nebraska is down big, they still need to finish those games. Right. I think we think of finishing as like close game, right? You need to come down and you need to get out a close win, right? But finishing games comes in losses and big losses, right? You want to finish that game strong. You want to finish that game and try to just get some momentum, do what you can, right? It's a mindset. And then, in games that you blow out like this, you want to finish. You don't want to let them sneak back in and steal some momentum towards the end of the game or have some garbage time points, because all that matters, right? And that shows kind of how locked in this team is. And I think you saw it from Matt Rule on the sideline. When you looked over at Matt Rule on the sideline, every time it kind of shined over to him, there wasn't a ton of celebration. He's very locked in and focused, right? Never gets too high, never gets too low, but is always, hyped and there for his guys. But that's what we're starting to see this team take on an identity of, right? It's an identity of, like, we're here, but we still want to be here, right? Like, beating UTEP is not our goal. Beating Colorado next week is not our goal. We have big goals, right? And this is one step forward, right? This is we did some things well today. We did some things bad. Take what we did, turn the page. Let's take some of those things we didn't do well and do more of those well next week, right? It's turning the page, turning the chapter, turning the book, and Nebraska can get better for this game. Looking over the UTEP defensive side, they had Dorian Hopkins with 16 total tackles, 6 solo tackles, 1 TFL. I had to call that guy out. But yeah, Maurice Westmoreland was one of the guys, the defensive lineman, that we're most, worried about, or was said to be their best defensive lineman, the edge rusher that Nebraska would have the most worry about. Corcoran and those guys would have to worry about. And like I said, he had 1 total tackle and got credited with a QB hurry there at the end of the second half. I think that was about it. It for him. So if you're looking over at the TFL totals, UTEP had 3 TFLs, 3 tackles for lost total in their entire defense. So the line did its job today. The offensive line did its job today. Albeit we'll see how they get going forward. But again, the line was something I expected. to be improved this year, improved year over year last year. Corcoran is a guy that I expected to be improved. I didn't want to come in with a negative thought about him. I expect him to be improved, and but it's the jury's out. We'll see as time goes on. Gary says, great start for my Cornhuskers. Pissed me off because it said they were supposed to be on Fox, but they weren't. Good thing I could follow the game on my phone. Yeah, so they the West Virginia game was in a rain delay, and then they switched over to FS2, and then they switched it back. I don't know. It came back from a commercial, and I think I was on horse racing. I was like, when did that happen? It's D1 FBS football. There are no cupcakes for anyone. If you're good at it, it shows on the scoreboard. Well, this was D1 FBS football. Colorado played FCS, so if we're going to take it there. But yeah, good point. The game was on my Fox channel on YouTube TV. I don't think UTEP is very good. You guys did better than Wisconsin. Ryan, who's you guys? Who are you? Our depth will be a strength this year. I did like the UTEP new head. Yeah, Scotty Walden's a great head coach. So he is the epitome of a Southern football coach, right? Just a high energy, like he needs some blood in his caffeine. That was my first thought when he was jumping around the sideline. He needs some blood in his caffeine. Defensive backs need to be on their game next week. Sanders threw for 445 on Thursday, 100%. And that is the one thing that, and watching Colorado, right? We can look a little bit forward there. And watching Colorado, one of the things that, I came away from that game saying is Travis Hunter is one of my favorite players to watch play because he is that good, right? He is a generational level of talent. Shadur is excellent, but what Shadur isn't good at is awareness, right? Shadur took a lot of hits that he didn't have to take last week. He took a couple on his throwing arm, right? And that's all fine and dandy against the North Dakota State team, but you're in week 1, right? Those hits are going to add up. They're going to take a toll, and he's not going to be able to continue to do that, especially this week against Nebraska. That's, we're going to be fired up. The defense is going to be fired up. They're going to be hitting, and our defensive line is no joke. So he's going to have to get some awareness about him. I mean, not even just awareness in the pocket, but awareness when he's, he doesn't scramble much, but when he does, just get down, get out of bounds, don't take the hits. But what we saw last week was, sometimes it's better to, CJ Stroud put it this way, right? What CJ Stroud was talking about when he got to the NFL, he started to see after the first 2 weeks, his body got real sore on him. So what he said he did was he's kind of looked at the game and he said it's kind of like a jump shooter in basketball, right? Or a spot up shooter, right? The job of the spot up shooter is to get to his spot before the defense does, right? He's got to rotate to his spot. He's got to know where his spot's going to be based on what the defensive alignment is and where the defense position goes, right? And so he equated to that, right? When the line is first collapsing, or when the defensive line is collapsing in, you got to then make a quick decision, right? Am I stepping up in the pocket, or am I going to rotate out and around, right? Because you don't want to go straight back, right? So it's either you have to make a split decision. I'm going up or I'm going out and around, and I'm trying to rotate out there before an end gets to me or before anybody can meet me out there, right? And I'm going to get rid of the ball, or I'm going to take myself out of bounds or throw it away, right? And that's the way to, stay within the confines of your offense and not put yourself in harm's way. And so what Shadur has, does a lot of times, and he has the talent to do it, and has had the talent to do it to where he, runs and scrambles and can throw it up, 60 yards and complete it. But at the same time, that's not always going to be the case. You're not always going to be able to get that ball off, right? And so and when you do, right, you're already going backwards and you're throwing, the ball 60 yards down the field, and you have guys, kind of barreling down on you. You're going to take a shot. You're going to have to jump up, throw it, take a shot. That's what he can't do, and that's what he continues to do. That's part of what he did last year as well. We saw it again, North Dakota State. Maybe he thought he could get away with it, North Dakota State. But again, I think his accuracy is unreal. His arm talent's unreal. He reads, he processes the game quickly. He's very smart, very cerebral as a player. Just takes a lot of unnecessary hits, and that could, come back to haunt him as the season goes along, or even next week. Another thing, looking forward to them is, defensively for them, right? They have Travis Hunter, and outside of that, though, there's not a lot on that defensive side of the ball. So this is where we're going to kind of want to hopefully see more of our, Jalen Lloyd's kind of getting some action in there. And I think one of the biggest things to see next week is I think we could get a lot of, your Ja'Cory Barneys, Jalen Lloyd's into stuff underneath and just kind of let them operate in that space, because you saw how much open space was there over the middle after North Dakota State would complete some passes. There was nobody within 10 to 15 yards. So, start coming in and getting these speedsters, getting the ball in their hands. Even Isaiah Nair, Isaiah Nair is as tall as he is and as big as he is. He's a speed guy. He's a 4.4 track guy, right? So, and we saw his speed today. So get the ball in his hands and get him in space. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing, because you're going to want to continue to put drives together, right? You don't want it to be this constant back and forth track meet where your defense is back on the field. And then, Nebraska's going to want to establish the run game and do what they did last year, right? Or do what they were supposed to do last year. Last year, the goal was, before Jeff Sims decided to not learn how to hold on to the football, what we needed to do then was be able to go in there against the undersized D line of Colorado and establish that running game and really kind of take the lead and protect the lead from that point on. And I think, again, another thing this year is going to be they don't have a lot of depth on that defensive side of the ball. So what it's going to be for Nebraska next week is it's going to be, rhythm throws and runs to start, right? Really start to wear into the heart of that defensive line, and then put your guys on display out there. Because the problem with Colorado's offense right now, they can't run the ball, right? So they are a very one-dimensional offense. So Nebraska wins that game by not being one-dimensional offensively. And that's what we showed today. So that's how you kill time possession. That's how you wear a defense down. If Colorado comes out there and they're trying to score quickly, and get their defense right back on the field, Nebraska comes out and puts together some, let's say Colorado comes out and scores, it's 21-14, Colorado scores 3 quick touchdowns, right? But Nebraska's putting methodical drives together. Well, invest in that, right? It's like the old fighting adage, right? Invest in the body, right? You invest in the body early so you can wear your opponent down, and that'll open up the head. That'll wear him down and set up the headshot. So it's really what we call investing in the body and wearing at the gas tank. And if you wear at their gas tank, then it's going to be a long day for them, especially when you got a 4-headed monster of, and 2 huge running backs, Gabe Irvin, Dante Dowdle. And we saw how physical Dante Dowdle was today. And then you got to rotate over to Emmett Johnson, who can run through you, run around you, quick step around you. But this team is already very physical as it is. So I think that the recipe for success next week is going to be just doing just that. Assert the game plan that we want to assert by getting big, getting physical, and not letting Colorado take Nebraska out of the style of play that Nebraska wants to play. And last year, that's what happened, right? Because, we would drive down the field and turn the ball over on plus territory on their side of the field. And they would have a short field. We couldn't keep our defense off the field. They just kept coming right back out, right back out, right back out. That's what we need to reverse this year. And again, last year was at altitude, but that's what we need to reverse this year. We're going to have the fire of the crowd behind our back. But right now it's 7 points. That spread's probably going to jump a little bit now after this game too. So we'll see. I'm curious to know y'all's takes on how you are feeling for that Colorado game overall. I'm curious to feel, because it seemed for the most part like most Nebraska fans seem pretty confident in that. So I'm curious to know what y'all say. Nebraska playing backups for a good chunk of the second half will help build the depth they need for a long season. 100%. Yes, that is the key to building depth, is making sure that, these guys rotate through and Michael, I think what they were trying to do today was, I loved it. Like, trying to go in there, not just throwing guys in because, hey, the game's over, let's just run the clock out. But they still had a purpose about them, right? They were still trying to hey, let's get Maurice Mazuka in there and try to get a touchdown. That they were still going for things, right? It just didn't seem like a normal, we're going to replace our starters and just kind of, fiddle fart around into the game. They were still rotating some guys in there at the end. They were getting guys like Carter Nelson. Looks like these are valuable reps that people are getting in. And that's why it's hard for me to pull myself away that last drive, because I wanted to watch the end just to see, fully how, what they were going to kind of do and how they were going to finish this game. And I love that they got the young guys involved. Carter Nelson is going to grow a lot just from this game. And, you know, this was the game where Carter Nelson really needed to show something in his offense, because it was going to be hard for him. Again, late enrollee, him learning the offense late, was going to be hard for him to come in against, you know, a power 4 opponent and, you know, be able to get his feet wet there. And I think him getting, you know, a couple catches under his belt, him being able to feel it out a little bit at the collegiate level, and now coming in the next week, and now you got, you know, we got Fedoni, you got Carter Nelson out there. Now you have Nair, who has confidence. Jamal Banks. I said beginning of the season, I think Jamal Banks is going to be a top 15 receiver by the time this season's over. And I still think that. 0 drops last year at Wake Forest. 0 with a bad quarterback and a bad offense. Jamal Banks is, in my opinion, he reminds me of DeAndre Hopkins. Just he is a deceptively fast guy, but not a burner. But he's not a guy you want to go up and try to get a ball over, right? Kind of like what Wilson said earlier, like 50-50 balls with him are 80-20 balls. And that's where that's the difference right now. Even with that pass up to Banks, right? That is 50-50 Raiola for a great throw, 50-50 Banks, because Banks, there's not a lot of guys outside of Banks that go up and get that ball too. So, you know, there's a lot of pieces of this team, and there's still a lot that still haven't been worked in that we might see worked in next week. We just saw kind of a taste of what this offense can be. And again, after, you know, the first couple of the offense was very, very vanilla today. We didn't get to see this offense on full display. We kind of got to see a very within themselves version of this offense. I think next week we can start to see a little bit more of them ramp up this offense. Another thing too, the trick plays by UTEP, right? And I'm not sure I got to watch the field view on this one where that running back, because I did see that receiver kind of get up field, but the running back didn't throw it, which led me to believe that there may have been somebody bracketing him with that sideline that may have stayed in position there. I don't know if again, without the field view, it would be hard to see, but he didn't throw that ball, which led me to believe that somebody stayed home, because I know somebody left that receiver. And again, what I was talking about last week in a 3-3-5, right? The reason it's a very risk reward defense is because for that reason, you don't ever want to cross that line of scrimmage and leave your assignment until the ball has crossed the line of scrimmage your way, right? Each person has a role in this team, in this defense especially, right? Each guy needs to be in their position. If one guy's out of position, that's when this defense is very much open to being exposed, right? So much more than other defenses, you know, you look at a 4-2-5-2, but a 3-3-5 as well, where the risk reward aspect of this defense means when you do take those risks, you got to have somebody in place behind you, and that was part of the reason we didn't get a lot of turnovers last year, to really jump in front of a ball. You need to know firsthand that you can get 2 hands on that ball and it's not going to get caught behind you and go for a touchdown, right? And the same thing with that, and that's what they did perfectly, because I thought they were going to come out with some trick plays because they were going to be playing with nothing to lose. They had to, 27 and a half point underdogs, 26 and a half, something like that. They were going to rotate out the trick plays. How Nebraska responded to those was key, and looked like Nebraska, for the most part, from my vantage point, did well. Again, I would like to see if maybe the running back just tucked that in because he didn't want to make the throw, but it seemed like everybody stayed home, and they were able to get him in the backfield. Didn't get to see a lot from the kicking game. Like to see more of that, but we'll see that next week. Almost, was curious if they would have took a long field goal there late in the game just to kind of see, let Alvano let one rip. You don't like to see Hull kick the ball out of bounds on the kickoff at all, but as it sits, I still think Alvano's our kicker. He was out there today, and I trust him, right? I would have liked to see maybe him get a 40-50 yarder under his belt just to feel really good about it. But again, you see one go through, whether be from 20, whether it be from 40, and that's a start right there. Kicking is very mental. What we saw a lot last year from Alvano is, I think he had a case of the yips, right? And if with kicking, with football in general, but with kicking especially, if you are tight and if you are thinking too much, you are not going to go, fluidly through your motion, through your kicking setup. You're just going to be tight, which is what's going to cause you to pull the ball, push the ball, right? You got to block all that stuff out. You got to keep your body relaxed, and you just got to let it muscle memory. But when you're tight, it's not muscle memory, right? You're thinking. And that's what I think happened last year. And that's why, I feel like Matt Rule has been very, very, you know, vocal about how much he still believes in this kicking game to succeed this year. And I do too. I believe in Alvano. I posted a stat, I forget earlier, week 1 or week 0 in college football. Trying to remember the kicker. He kicked a 60-yarder. But if you look at his last season as a junior, he had the same exact field goal percentage as Tristan Alvano did as a true freshman. And the kid, he was out there, drilling 50, 60 yarders, right? Alvano's a freshman. We know the talent he has. Let him kind of get a few of these under his belt, kick some, kick some kicks and get some momentum. Last year, the whole weight of the world was on his shoulders because the offense couldn't score points. It was him. It was on him to score points. You know what I'm saying? Like if you can't have your quarterbacks getting you 7 all the time and all the pressure's on you as a true freshman to come out and get 3, and then the weight of the world's already on your shoulders because you're overthinking and you're missing, then that's a recipe for disaster. So I feel pretty good about Alvano this year. Like watching Carter Nelson set up Banks' block and bounce it outside on that swing pass. That was the footwork that I was kind of talking about from Carter Nelson. You saw that quick little cutout, and he's a big guy, and so that showed a lot of his his maneuverability and his athleticism for him to get outside of that block too, because that was a pretty good bit of effort on his end. Heard the commentator say Hartzog stayed home and picked up the wide receiver. Perfect. That's what I like to see. Then sometimes I try to watch these things without sound, just because I'm trying to watch the game and not be influenced by the commentators. So I'm muted from time to time, so I'm not always listening to the commentators. But yeah, that's good then, and especially Hartzog, because again, he's kind of filling in there. But yeah, it was good to see them stay home on that. Then if D-line can get consistent pressure without blitzing, they will probably force several more turnovers this year. That's the thing, and I think that's the thing with Colorado, that it's going to be hard for Colorado to deal with, is they got to come down and they got to stop this run game, but then they're going to have to defend the pass game. And Nebraska, on the other hand, is going to be able to send 4 or 5, right? And be able to, the uniqueness about the 3-5 is when you replace a defensive lineman for a defensive back, you can drop 8 in coverage. Like the 3-5 is the one defense where you can drop 8 people into coverage. And you get, 3 people rushing, you get 4 people rushing, drop 7 in coverage, you get 5, 6 in coverage, and you can bracket those guys pretty well. And that's why I feel like the balanced team is going to have the advantage next week, because you force that defense out of what they want to do, right? You have to mold yourself to what the offense is doing. Well, if Colorado doesn't have any run game against Nebraska next week, I mean, Nebraska is going to sit there and just kind of, drop 6, 7 into coverage all day and probably be able to get home with the 4 they're sending, or and like I said, some of the stunts today where it was just simply, it's just a little crossover. They had Jamari going inside, they had a backer coming outside, or they'd have Jamari fake inside, somebody cut inside, and Jamari go outside. So there was a lot of schematics that they did today. But again, I think they kept a lot of it very vanilla. So next week we'll see, not only on the offensive side of the ball, but on the defensive side of the ball, kind of what they have under their belts. We didn't see everything today. Not even close. So nice not to see them run the ball back on a kickoff the right direction too. Oh yeah. See them run the ball back. Yeah, punts and kick returns. There was a time where we were giving a standing ovation for catching the punts. There was a time. So now we're at the point IGC put on 20 pounds. So he's a little bit bigger and stronger out there and kept his speed. And so it was nice to see IGC get out there. Not only that, field the punts cleanly. You can't be overconfident in that either. We've seen that in the past, but fielding the punts cleanly was a big thing. And then that's what he did. BA, I know, BA, you were out there. So I hope you had a good time out there, man. If you haven't checked out his show, the BA coaches show over there, good stuff going over there. He's a was a high school football coach in the state of Kansas, took off this year to start his channel and stuff like that. And it's kind of talking the X's and O's as well. So good stuff over there. Red Ed. I thought that said Ed Reed at first. I'm dyslexic, apparently. I don't think we blitzed all game. I'd have to go back and look. I mean, I'm pretty sure we sent some stunts. Because just with the 3-5 by nature of the beast, you're going to send a bunch of different, fronts, send a bunch of different looks, send a bunch of different stunts. So I'd imagine we blitzed at some points, but I don't know if we ever blitzed more than, say, 5 people. I don't know if we ever brought a big, house blitz or anything like that. North Dakota State was 143-12 since 2011. CU didn't open up 53-140 in the same time span, second half. So what we could be, we faced adversity and rose the occasion. Hold on, let me read that. North Dakota State was one since 2011. CU didn't open up with the same time span. So I have no idea what you're rambling about, because North Dakota State is in a year under a first-year head coach that now has transitioned that team from a defensive-minded team to an offensive-minded team. I'm pretty sure North Dakota State was without their star defensive lineman and had like 2 brand new freshmen starting O linemen. So I don't like. Are you defending North Dakota State? Because again, this is a down North Dakota State team. They were 9-4 last year, and they got a new coach, and their first offensive coach in over 20 years. So learn ball. But if y'all want to drop your comments in here before we close the show, I'm usually on here for about an hour. But if y'all want to drop any more comments in here, questions in here, let me know your thoughts on any of that, and I'll get to them. And the last thing, penalties, right? Penalties. 3 penalties. I think 3. Let me double check. May have been 2. But I know, yeah, here we are. So 3 penalties for 35 yards and 9 penalties for 76 for UTEP. Again, penalties was another thing. We talked about the scrimmage. When they were talking about the scrimmage, they were turnovers and procedural issues were the big thing, right? And I went back and looked at Matt Rule's press conference a year ago. And when he was talking about last year, he was talking about procedural penalties and turnovers from the first team, second team, third team, et cetera. This year was talking about them from, turnovers from the second team. The first team didn't turn the ball over, but, they were having procedural penalties that was keeping the first team offense from scoring touchdowns and being good, not great. Well, the good thing is we didn't see that in this game, right? I didn't really see any penalties that really killed us or kept us from scoring. There was the one that created the 2nd and 30 that we were able to convert. But outside of that, none of the penalties really were drive killers or kept us from getting 3, if I'm not mistaken. So that means, that was a good improvement there, whatever they were keying on. And like I said, I didn't think that was going to be an issue because they saw it in the scrimmage. That wasn't something we'd been hearing about throughout camp. So I think everything that Matt Rule was saying about this team coming into the season, we saw. And I think that's another reason why I kind of went back and did that video where I was looking back a year ago at what they were saying versus this year, just to see how transparent they were with us last year, and just so we can kind of get a gauge for how transparent they're going to be with us coming to this season. I think everything that they said, could be an issue, was either slightly an issue or not an issue at all. And we'll see what that when the lights are bright next week, because again, I get it is UTEP, but you do need to see this against UTEP before you see it against anybody else. That is the good thing about Nebraska not playing a team like Minnesota, like they did last year on the road, where you come in a slobber knocker 10-13 game, hard fought Big Ten game going to week 2 in Colorado, where this game you get out of here with UTEP, you get to see a lot of the good, you get to see some of the bad, and carry that over into next week, and the players get some rest. There's a lot of stuff yet to be seen. There's not a whole lot on film for Colorado to look at. So a lot of the stuff that Nebraska has been working on this offseason, we're going to see that next week. A lot of stuff defensively that Nebraska's been working on this offseason, we're going to see that next week. Again, remember, this is very vanilla. We scored 10 points in the second half and probably could have ran that up. So 23 points in the second quarter, 7 points in the first. So that beautiful second quarter, that's what we need to see more of all season. But again, this play call in that second quarter, everything was working perfect. It was a good balance. Everybody was doing their job. The blocking was setting up. There were no penalties. Like, everybody was where they needed to be. That was that second quarter was how good this team can be when it's operating efficiently and firing at all cylinders. And so, like I said, the good thing is we saw that. We didn't come out here and there was a time where we weren't beating teams this bad. We weren't beating teams that we should beat 40-7. So it's fun to sit here after and say it was just UTEP, but it has been teams like UTEP before that, Georgia Southern 600 yards on us. I'm sorry to bring that up, but 600 yards on us. So but yeah, who's all going to be at the game next week? Hold on. Let me show my chain. Hold on. Just for those that haven't seen it, y'all got to look for this next week of the game. There we go. Next week, I'm being section 29. Y'all look for this baby right here. I'm going to be lighting up the stadium. I'm going to be walking that my neck is going to be hurting because I'm going to be on there from noon until midnight. So what we're doing is my family, my cousin got a lake house out there. We're going from a party bus from Omaha to Lincoln, from the lake house to Lincoln. And then we are going to be there from noon to midnight. And then we're taking the party bus back. So if you're going to be out there, let me know. And for those of you that aren't members that are new, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And you could follow me over at _H-Town Husker as well. So that way, if you're out there, you can let me know. I'll try to come stop by and say hi to as many people as I can. And if y'all see me out there, just come say hi. But I'll drop into the last couple of your comments here. Nope, happy with the game. Everyone knows what needs to happen next week. Exactly. I think we're lockstep focused on next week. So like I said, if you're new to the channel, I appreciate everybody who stopped in here. Thank y'all so much for joining the conversation with me. Y'all keep it fun for me. And hopefully I keep it fun for y'all. And if y'all don't mind dropping a like and subscribe. And I got a lot of content coming for y'all this week. A lot of Colorado coverage coming. Tuesday live stream at 6 p.m. Central. If y'all want to join me there for the coverage, I might try to have a Colorado reporter come on if I can find one that's worth a darn. But yeah, I'll try to have somebody on for y'all next week to go over and break that down game. Maybe we can get another perspective from a Colorado perspective. So stay tuned on that. But I will be dropping a video for y'all probably tomorrow. I was thinking about dropping one tonight, but I might just drop it tomorrow. So y'all stay tuned for that. And I got content coming for y'all all next week. And again, stay tuned here at Nebraska Football at the Voice of College Football for all the latest breaking news and everything. Post games, you can find it here with me. I'm Justin Adams. And again, I appreciate everybody who stopped in and joined us. And I will see y'all in the next video. Peace.